Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cinema Gems. I'm your host, Aaron Kramers, and
Thomas McClellan.
Today we're going to be talking about the 2009 war epic directed by Quentin Tarantino, Inglourious Basterds.
Alrighty then. I mean, let's start out with the obvious, the opening scene, pretty much.
The most intense scene ever.
And that's a great way to look at tension because on the surface, they don't seem to be doing anything. They seem to be just talking about German politics and milk. But then when it's revealed that Hans Landa knows that there's Jews underneath the floorboard, you're like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And that brings me to one of my personal favorite characters, Hans Landa, pretty much.
Played by Christoph Waltz.
This is his first collaboration with Tarantino.
And it's a movie that gave him attention
In
from
America,
everyone.
pretty much, yeah. I mean, he was popular in, like, Germany and Austria, but he didn't really get too much recognition over here, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like him as Dr. King Schultz, but I love him in this one. He seems kind of to be, like, the archetypical Nazi bad guy, but he has some very fun lines in between. Like the whole bingo scene, you know. Ooh, that's a bingo! Is this what you say? Is that bingo? What do you say, bingo? Bingo. And of course, he has one of the most intense scenes in the movie where he strangles that actress, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, usually strangling scenes are over and done with, but this one takes its time because that's actually how a realistic strangling would go. But it's very uncomfortable to watch sometimes because it's so quiet and we don't know what's going on pretty much.
And also another intense scene is at the bar.
Ah, yes, the bar scene. Oh. But besides the bar scene itself, it's kind of interesting because they bring up a concern that I always found myself wondering with films like this, like where you're playing a spy. How come they never accidentally get a hint of your accent accidentally by that kind of thing? And this film does that. And hey, it's Michael Fassbender, why not?
Yeah.
I like the fact that they caught on that Fassbender was actually a Brit because there's sort of a vocal change in the accents, which sometimes you can recognize. And I like that they were able to recognize that kind of thing. And again, they're not talking about much. That's the thing with Tarantino movies. It's a Tarantino film, you know what they're going to be talking about.
Pop culture.
Pop culture, movies, music, you know it.
Yeah.
That was weird because that scene was preceded by a Mike Myers cameo of all things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doing the Love Guru would do that to you pretty much.
Yeah.
And not to mention, much like his other films, he also has to have a little history lesson about film during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where we get a sudden Samuel Jackson narration talking about the history about how film was flammable.
Yeah.
Which is actually an interesting statement on France at the time. Because when France was occupied by the Germans would only allow them to see German propaganda films. They wouldn't allow them to see anything else, pretty much. So in a way, this is kind of like a revenge flick for not just the Jewish people, but also the French cinema as a whole, kind of. In fact, after France was liberated in 1944, that's when they got a huge wave of American films coming in, because finally they can watch something they've been missing for over 4 years, it seems. But other than that, let's also talk about the Bastards themselves.
Brad Pitt and company.
Yeah, Brad Pitt's got the weirdest accent in that.
Tennessee.
That's Tennessee. Bullshit, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
But he does his role, and he comes off as kind of an intimidating character because he's this drill sergeant kind of character. But at least he cares for his men and all that.
Yeah.
Particularly the Bear Jew, played by surprising Eli Roth cameo. Hey, Donnie! Yeah! Got us a German here wants to die for the country. Oblige him. But other than that, I don't know if you know this, but the Bastards are kind of based on a real regiment.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'll try to explain without being too boring, but what happened during the war, the American government were trying to get soldiers that knew the terrain of Europe at the time. And around this time, there were a lot of refugees from these countries that the Nazis had taken over, most of them Jews. So what they would do, they would recruit them in the army, and they would use them as sort of like army specialists that would go behind enemy lines and sabotage things. And since they knew the languages and all that, they were perfect as infiltration units. And that's essentially what they did. They were there to do one thing only. Killing Nazis. Because why not?
Mm-hmm.
And scalping them, apparently.
I want my scalps.
I want my scalps, or something like that. I don't think people know this, but apparently the first Nazi scalping victim in the movie is actually another surprise little fun-filled cameo. It's Tarantino.
Oh.
Of course, as you know. But he doesn't get to act in this one, so maybe it's perfect that way.
Yeah.
But I have to say my favorite character has to be Shoshana, the French girl. Like, you feel like what she's going through. She's a traumatized woman, and she has to essentially fight to survive. And now she's kind of getting at the point where if I'm going to go out in blaze of glory, I'm going to take everybody with me, that kind of thing. Kind of reminds me of, say, The Bride in a way. Her determination and fire, but like, and let's be honest, she has a very interesting monologue to say during that whole burning theater thing. I'm gonna kill you all and stuff like that. But an interesting thing about the cast that you might not know about, apparently because this was such an interesting production, they had casting agencies in 4 countries actually.
Really?
Germany, France, Britain, and United States, because they wanted to get a sort of international feel, which a lot of World War films, they only really focus on like one side, but they wanted to focus on multiple sides, kind of like The Longest Day or something like that. I mean, you can tell, like, they even got a short Harvey Keitel cameo in there, because, why not? But overall, what did you like about the most about the film?
I like the writing and the tension.
You could say that it's on point for this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Tarantino seems to really be amping up tension. That seems to be his go-to thing, pretty much.
One thing you gotta like about Tarantino is he doesn't write movie scripts, he writes play scripts. And every movie plays out like a play.
Oh, that's fair. I'll admit, yeah, it does kind of feel like a play at times, with the way the actors are standing and talking and stuff like that. And short action scenes spurred through.
Yeah.
But if there was something that you didn't like about the film, what would it be?
Yeah, it's too long.
Admittedly, it's too long with mostly just people talking, and it can get kind of stale at times, but it makes it up with having pretty alright action sequences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's only just made just for Tarantino to get weird shots.
Yeah.
So, overall, what would you give this film?
I would give this a 9 out of 10.
Alright.
What would you give it?
I'm going to say 8 out of 10 because, like I say, a bit long, and maybe it's a bit got that Tarantinoism, which we were kind of getting stale around that time. But it makes it up with an interesting cast, some fascinating gunplay and all that, brilliant writing, and of course, one of the most meme-filled moments of all time, 99999! You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. And suspenseful-filled atmosphere and everything.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I do like the whole sort of, and I'm a huge history geek, but I kind of do like the historical thing that they went with, the whole making it look like they killed Hitler and all that, but even though they really didn't, so that's what I gotta say. Alright.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications, and make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we're also on Patreon, where you can donate money and we will give you something in return.
Yep.
I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Yes, sir.